Hello, welcome. My name is Deborah Gray, and I am the founder of Canela Public Relations, which is a public relations company which has operations in Spain and Portugal. And I am delighted to be presenting the Module 6 of ENRICH in LAC's European Network of Research and Innovation Centers in Latin America and the Caribbean's learning tool, which is all about marketing, and more specifically with my section, marketing strategies in Europe. So in the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to present some ideas about how you go about implementing a marketing strategy, how important it is to have a marketing strategy, and what are some cultural specific orientations you need to take into account when you go about having a marketing strategy. So to start with, some things to think about when you first decide to implement a marketing strategy. The most important thing that you need to be able to do is to define your target audience, because many times people say our product or our service is for everyone. And I think you'll find that's quite impossible that everyone would be interested in what you're offering. So in order to get access to your target audience, you need to define them very, very clearly. And then presumably you've produced your service or your product because you've identified a need in the market. So your target audience need to understand what it is you're solving for them. What amazing product or amazing service have you come up with that will take away a problem they don't want or will make their life a happier place to be? You need to be able to define who they are and also explain to them why you are overcoming that problem for them. But inevitably, you're going to have some kind of competition out there that's doing something similar. And you need to know who they are so that you can make your message ever so slightly different or more impactful. So that when your buyer or your potential target audience or your potential customer is thinking about making a purchase, or thinking about changing their provider, or thinking about where they want to spend their money, your message comes across much more clearly to them. So how do you compete against your competition? Is your price cheaper? Can you reach further? If your price isn't cheaper, presumably the quality of your service is better, or you can get the thing, whatever it is you're offering, product or service, you can get it to your client much more quickly. Hopefully one of those things is true about what you're offering for versus your competition. So just to recap, you need to define well your target audience, define well what their pain points are, work out who is doing something similar and what you're doing that is better than they are. And when you've done that, when you've come up with your messages about why you're better, what you need to do is work out how to reach your target audience, because depending on what age they are, what gender they are, what interests they have, where they live, what their activities are, they will have a certain set of habits, and you need to get your message into them in the course of their day-to-day. So what does your potential customer read? Do they read newspapers? A lot of people don't read newspapers anymore. Do they read magazines? Do they consume their information online? Do they get their information via TikTok or Telegram? Or where is it that they get their influences from? What do they watch? Again, presumably hardly anyone watches television anymore. Do they watch a certain set of YouTubers? Do they watch Netflix? What do they listen to? Certainly in Spain and Portugal, podcasts have really, really increased as a way to consume and absorb information. So once you've defined who your target audience are, you then need to set out a specific set of map what it is they listen to and how you can influence them. Do they travel on the metro? Can you put advertising on the metro? Do they absolutely not travel on the metro? So don't waste your time on metro advertising. Things like that. Do they follow influencers? That's very important. I mean, obviously, it used to be that influencers were a way to get younger generations' attention, but now that's not true. I mean, influencers have effect on all kinds of generational cohorts. Another very, very important thing about implementing a marketing strategy is knowing how much budget you have. It's very difficult as a public relations agency or a marketing agency or a social media advertising agency. It's very difficult to construct a strategy with a blank page. So it's really important to know how much of your money you are going to dedicate to your marketing budget, and also what will success look like for you. You need to know that you're on the right path. So you may have an annual marketing budget, but it's important to know, should you split it up into quarters, into months, into 6 monthly tranches of money, and then put some measurement in place along the way so that you know you're in the right path. And you can stop investing in something if it isn't working for you. So it's very important when you're thinking about having a marketing strategy to know how you will invest your money, over what period of time, and how you measure if it's a success or not. So just to recap, how can you reach your target audience? What do they read and listen to? What social media channels do they use? Are they open to influence from influencers? And what does your budget look like? How much have you got, and over what period of time will you be spending it? So that's more or less what I want to say about starting your thoughts on a marketing strategy. And now I want to move over to the importance of having a marketing strategy. So I'm sure there aren't many people out there who don't know who Bill Gates is. Bill Gates very famously quoted, "If I only had $2 left, I would spend $1 on PR." I like that for a lot of reasons. One, it gives some emphasis to PR, but it also makes me laugh to think that Bill Gates would only be left with $2. Anyway, and there's another thing. I'm British, and we have a writer who you may have heard of called Oscar Wilde, who says there's only one thing worse than being talked about, which is not being talked about. So the importance of a marketing strategy is that people talk about you. They talk about you. They tell their friends about you. They say to their sister, brother, friend, colleague at work, have you tried this service? Have you tried this product? And that's why it's really important to have a marketing strategy in place, because less and less people respond well to advertising. So you need to make sure that your marketing strategy includes a whole way, every single channel there is to influence a person. And you need to check that the messages you're putting out there are being received by the people who you really want to be hearing them. So which channel do you choose? Do you go for advertising? Do you go for public relations? Do you go for social media? What are the good ones to choose, and what are the less effective ones to choose? Well, unfortunately, there's no right or wrong answer. It depends on the product you've got, the service you're offering, the budget you have, and the market in which you're operating. So, for example, social media campaigns are very, very easy to measure. They are easy to start and stop, and they are easy to put a small amount of investment. So that ticks a lot of boxes for a lot of people. And that's something to consider. If you're starting small, it's very easy to go straight onto Instagram or TikTok and start a campaign. Public relations is worth considering because it gives you the validation of having a third party writing about you, because you've convinced a journalist that your product or your service is worth writing about in their magazine or their media, and that's really that gives you a sense of being authentic, because you've convinced a third party that what you're doing is really interesting. The problem with public relations is you can't control it. The very fact that makes it authentic is because it's going past a third person, a journalist, but it also means you can't control that person. So sometimes that leads to frustration because a journalist will write what they think, not necessarily what you want them to write. So you need to be careful with public relations. It's difficult to control your message. And there we have advertising. Advertising you can control because you've paid for the space in the media or the metro or the bus stop or wherever you've paid for it. Advertising you can control, but unfortunately people with the sensory overload we all have are getting more and more immune to advertising. So there was a time when people took notice of banners, but now people are immune to banners, or in outdoor advertising space, people just don't see, not least because they're walking along looking at their phone. So advertising is great in terms of control, but some people are, the message doesn't get through. So when you are conducting a marketing strategy, it's really important to think about which channel will have an effect on your target audience. So to recap, I just want to say social media, easy, cheap, and very easy to measure and easy to stop. Public relations, difficult to control, but quite authentic. And advertising, complete control, but you never know who's necessarily seen it or absorbed the message. And finally, I just want to come to some culturally specific orientations. So a previous speaker in this program, I think it was module 2, put the map of Brazil over the map of Europe, and there was lots of space left. So it seems that Europe is a very small region physically compared to somewhere like an enormous country like Brazil. But that said, there are lots of populations who speak their own languages and have their own characteristics and have their own set of circumstances and ways to consume information. So the two countries in which Canela, my company, operates in are Spain and Portugal. And many people consider the Iberian Peninsula as one place. But as those of us who live here know, it's absolutely not one place. I mean, it's one peninsula, but it's two countries. And within those two countries, there are 5 languages. And within those 5 languages, there are regions, there are villages, there are sets of aspirations, generational cohorts, many, 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 many audiences. So if you want to judge all of Europe together, there is a whole set of different circumstances that go beyond just simple language that you have to take into account when you do a marketing strategy. So one thing is size, just taking Spain and Portugal into account. Spain has 45 million people, Portugal has 10 million people. Spain is the 4th largest economy in Europe, Portugal's the 15th largest economy in Europe. In terms of communicating, in Spain, people don't tend to speak English so much as the people in Portugal do. So if you're coming from a country where your spokespeople don't speak Spanish and only speak English, that's okay if you want to go to Portugal, but less okay if you're trying to market to people in Spain. And then social media consumption. The social media consumption is very different only in Spain and Portugal, let alone the rest of Europe. So, for example, X, formerly known as Twitter, is largely irrelevant in Portugal, whereas it's used very much in Spain. So you need to, if you want to approach your target audience through social media, they're the kinds of things that you need to know about the individual countries rather than looking at Europe as a whole. And then newspapers. In Spain, there's 300 newspapers. In Portugal, there's 140. Now, I've been to press events in both countries, and what tends to happen is in Portugal, not very many journalists come, but when they come, they ask some really, really searching questions. And in Spain, maybe you get more people coming, but there isn't so much in-depth questioning of spokespeople. And I think that's quite an interesting difference between the two countries. The other thing is the metro in both countries. So there's a metro in Madrid, there's a metro in Lisbon. In Lisbon, there's very little advertising, but the advertising that does get done in the metro is very effective versus, say, in Madrid, there is advertising on the metro, but because there's quite a lot of it, it isn't necessarily so impactful. So they are the kind of things that you need to take into account with the culture of just the two countries that I know about, let alone the whole of Europe. So there's some of the things I wanted to share with you. And just recapping, although Europe is geographically much smaller than just one of the countries in South America, there are many languages, many different sets of media systems and ways to absorb information through influencers, through social media, through marketing. And that's the end of this conversation. I hope you found it useful. And if I can be of any help, please don't hesitate to get in contact at www.canelapr.com, Canela as in cinnamon. And thank you very much indeed.
Hello again, and thank you very much for participating in this class and this topic. It's a pleasure for us to have you with us in our program. So I would like to thank you again and just say that the Enriching LAC Center, it's an association that's located in Latin America. And obviously we put together, as I mentioned before, we put together Europe and Latin America. As a center, we coordinate this, we coordinate the services, and we are at your disposal to support you in any time, in any sense, to make possible our main objective, which is innovation, internationalization, and make sure that we come to the reality and projects that will benefit not only our business and our companies, but also the whole humanity. Thank you very much for being here with us. Bye-bye.